Gil Martin here, and welcome everybody to the Daily Packers Post, where we give you daily in-depth coverage of your Green Bay Packers. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button so you never miss an episode. We bring you new episodes every day, Monday through Friday, and we're going in depth on the Green Bay Packers. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about a lesson that the Packers can learn from the Eagles' Super Bowl win over the Kansas City Chiefs. And look, out of all the teams that the Eagles played in the playoffs and the Super Bowl, we're talking about four teams altogether. The Packers defense actually did the best job of any of them at minimizing that very, very talented Eagles offense between Saquon Barkley and the great receivers and Jalen Hurts. And an offensive line that is really, really strong. It was the Packers defense that held them to 22 points. And if you remember correctly, the first 7 points were set up off a short field by the fumble by Keyshawn Nixon. And, can't completely blame the defense on that one. But if you looked at that Super Bowl, here were the Chiefs. They're coming in looking to three-peat. And thankfully, the Packers remain the only team in NFL history to win 3 championships in a row, doing it twice, 1929 to 31, and again, 1965 to 1967. But, 1965, there was no Super Bowl that year, so it isn't quite 3 Super Bowls in a row, although, that's not a good reason for football fans to disregard the fact that the Packers are the only franchise to win 3 championships in a row. Anyway, the one big thing that the Eagles did well, that the Packers struggled with all season, was that they were able to get consistent pressure on Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs without blitzing. They were able to rush 4, put 7 players back in coverage, and yet 6 sacks, 11 quarterback hits. You had the pick 6 by Cooper DeJean that kind of, was caused by pressure largely because Mahomes threw the ball, more sooner than he wanted to and not accurately because he couldn't step up into the throw. And by the end of the game, the Chiefs had only 275 total yards, and a lot of that, including most of their points, came in garbage time. I mean, it was 27-0 Eagles at the half. And we knew at that point that the game was almost certainly over. And the fact that the Eagles did this without blitzing, that was something the Packers were just not able to do all season. No defensive lineman on Green Bay had more than 7.5 sacks. That was Rashan Gary. And after Gary, no one had more than 5 sacks. And as a result, you saw blitz packages put together by Jeff Hafley, where Edrin Cooper, Quay Walker, Keyshawn Nixon, sometimes, one of the safeties, they would be blitzing, or you saw a combination of blitzes and stunts designed to get pressure on the quarterback because the Packers just couldn't seem to get pressure using just their 4 guys. And we know that was the original plan. After the season, Brian Gutekunst in his press conference basically said, hey, I think we have the right players on the defensive line, but he said he was disappointed, in air quotes, that they didn't develop into a more consistent unit. And then shortly after that, defensive line coach Jason Reprovich was let go. And what we did not see from the Packers defensive line was progress being made at getting to the quarterback, winning those one-on-one matchups, seeing Lukas Van Ness take another step forward, developing his secondary and third possible moves on any given play as opposed to just the bull rush. Seeing more juice from these pass rushers, it just did not happen. Now, look, there are reasons. Obviously, moving from a 3-4 to a 4-3 had a big impact on the Packers. All of a sudden, guys like Rashan Gary and early in the season, Preston Smith, they were used to lining up as outside linebackers, and now all of a sudden their hand is on the ground. The angle of approach is different. the way that the offensive linemen are going to approach them are different. It changed the game a little bit. And there was clearly an adjustment period. And, you know, at the same time, you got to hope that this team can be better rushing the quarterback with only 4 in 2025. And here's the other thing. It's not that the Packers haven't used resources, draft capital, to try to get defensive linemen. Under Brian Gutekunst, you had, Gary in the first round back in 2019, excuse me, 12th overall pick. Devontae Wyatt in 2022, 28th overall pick. Lukas Van Ness in 2023, 13th overall pick. We didn't even mention Kenny Clark, who was a first-round pick before Goody took over as the general manager. But again, all of those players were drafted when the Packers were still playing a 3-4 base defense, or at least a 3-man front. So those guys were either drafted to be interior linemen like Wyatt and Clark, or to be edge rushers lining up as outside linebackers like Gary, Van Ness. So the issue is that you need to adjust. Okay, there's no question about that. And there are different skill sets. I think in the second half of the season, it got a little better for Gary. The light certainly did seem to come on for him. I am hoping that Lukas Van Ness will make a year 3 jump, but the resources have been allocated here, but they haven't always hit. Gary made the Pro Bowl this year, although I don't think he necessarily deserved it, although his run defense was really, really good this year, and his pass rush win rate was okay, but not up to his usual expectations. Wyatt doesn't start, but is a very useful player who can rush the passer from the interior occasionally. Van Ness still hasn't started a game after 2 seasons, and in 2 seasons combined, despite not missing any games, only has 7 sacks. The adjustment was an issue. Preston Smith midseason said, hey, I am used to a 3-man front. Trade me. The Packers traded him to the Steelers at the deadline. There was clearly an adjustment going on. The defense did better overall in 2024. They were 6th in points allowed, 5th in yards allowed. It's not like they didn't get to the quarterback at all, because they most certainly did. But the difference very often between a good team or a very good team and an elite team is, doing things like getting pressure on the quarterback with 4 rushers and not having to resort to these exotic blitz packages and all these fancy things. So if you can get the front 4 next year under Hafley to take a step forward and be more consistent at getting to the passer, it certainly would help the Packers. You got to remember one thing. You could talk all you want about the importance of quarterbacks, and they are vital. This is a passing-driven, quarterback-driven league. But the NFL, what did Vince Lombardi say? The NFL football is blocking and tackling. If you block and tackle better than the other team, you're going to win. Well, blocking and tackling, that is your offensive line and your defensive line. And you win games in the trenches. The Packers need more from their defensive line next year in order to take that next step from really good to elite. And it's a lesson that I think the Chiefs learned from their demolishment by the Eagles, and something that the Packers can certainly benefit from if they can watch that game film and try to create a more dominant defensive line. I would not be surprised if Brian Gutekunst either drafts a defensive lineman on day 1 or 2 of the draft, adds a free agent there, or acquires somebody via the trade route during this offseason. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. Again, I am Gil Martin. I want to thank you for watching the Daily Packers Post. Check out our website at thepackerspost.com for in-depth daily articles on your Green Bay Packers. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for watching. And of course, go Pack Go.